everybody, and welcome to virtual day trip to wine country presented by Citi. I'm Sam Kimball from New York Wine Events, and we are looking forward to a really fun show tonight. We're doing a first this evening. We're going to the Paso Robles region in California, and that's exciting. We haven't been to a winery from Paso Robles. It's a major wine producing region. I want to show everybody on the map here where we're going. In case you're not familiar with the Paso Robles area. So this is a wide view of the California coast. You can see San Francisco up north. You can see Los Angeles down south. And kind of right in the middle there where you see that map pin is Paso Robles. And what the map doesn't do for us is show us, and this is the satellite image, how mountainous it is. It is a gorgeous area, and one side of it is very mountainous. And we'll have our guest will tell us a lot more about the region and the background, but a very cool place to go. And if you didn't know, and I didn't know this until recently, the Paso Robles is short for, in Spanish, El Paso de Robles, which means the Pass of the Oaks. And it's a city in San Luis Obispo County, California. It's known for a number of things, as so many wonderful places in California are. It's known for hot springs. It's known for its abundance of wineries, production of olive oil, almond orchards, and for playing host to the California Mid-State Fair. As you probably noticed, it's right in the middle of the state of California, halfway between San Francisco and Los Angeles. And the growth industry in Paso Robles, which is wine, has had a very long history there. Wine grapes were introduced to Paso Robles soil in 1797 by the Spanish conquistadors and Franciscan missionaries. And so that's really cool. We're talking about a place where wine grapes have been growing and wine has been made for many years. A good 200 and something years. And one of the heritage grapes today, it's notable, is Zinfandel. And for any of you who have tuned in and watched our show before, our weekly broadcast, I am, and we at New York Wine Events are big fans of Zinfandel. Zinfandel is America's grape. It is a truly fantastic wine grape and makes amazing wine. Paso Robles is also known for having some great French Rhone grape varietals that are well known for coming from the Rhone region in France. And so this is going to be fun. We're going to learn something, and we're also going to go through and taste some great wines. We're heading to a pretty special place, and that is J Dusi Wines. J Dusi is a vineyard which spans 4 generations of family history, and you will learn all about that when we meet our guest, who's part of the 4th generation and who is an extraordinary winemaker. You can check out J Dusi Wines online. You can visit jdusiwines.com. I'm going to put the URL up on the screen right now. And by the way, did you take advantage of the discount code yet for the wines? I know some of you did and ordered them ahead of tonight's tasting, but if you didn't, check out on the screen to my right here is the URL and the promo code, which is ZAP10, Z-A-P 10. That saves you 10% off of any of the wines. So again, welcome everybody. I am excited to be in Paso Robles virtually. You can see the winery building behind me there. And it's great to have everybody tune in. Thank you for tuning in. As always, please feel free to ask questions while we're doing the session. Use the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or use the chat function, and we will answer those questions on the fly, as many as we can throughout the session. Also, as always, hit us up. I see Jackie just did it. Thank you, Jackie. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Where in the world are you tuning in from? It's so awesome to see everybody coming from all corners of the country. So without any further delay, it's really a privilege and a pleasure for me to host today Janell Dusi, the winemaker at J Dusi Wines, and a fourth generation family member of the family that started the vineyard. Janell, welcome. It's great having you.
Hi guys, thank you so much. It's great to join you guys from sunny California in the middle of a vineyard. I should say sunny and hot California. We're 103 right now, but as you can see my wind blowing around, I had to put my hair back because this is what makes Paso Robles such a great wine growing region and great for the vineyards and the vines, is that we get really, really hot during the day and we get this afternoon breeze. So it's about 4 o'clock here. And this is the ocean breeze coming through to cool us down a little bit. And that's one of the key components we'll get into later about what makes our area such a great region to grow old vines and Zinfandel.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about J Dusi. I mean, you're located in Paso Robles in California, but how did the family get started in the wine business, in the vineyard business, and how did you evolve to where you are today with the winery?
Yeah, so I come from a long line of grape farmers in my family. I'm fourth generation of the grape farming side of things, and the first one to start making the wine under a Dusi family label. It was the early 1900s, and my great-grandparents immigrated over from northern Italy. And as they did, they settled into Paso Robles in the early 1920s. As they got to Paso Robles, they were like, what are the other Italian families doing here in Paso? You know, there's oak trees. They cut those down. A lot of them, they made charcoal out of them. They had businesses, but all the other Italian families were planting Zinfandel. So they kind of joined that bandwagon to kind of assimilate to what the other Italians were doing in the area. And they planted 40 acres of Zinfandel back in 1925, right along Highway 101. So as you saw on the map earlier, Paso Robles sits exactly between San Francisco and Los Angeles, a little over towards the ocean. So it's the kind of the main bloodline thoroughfare through California, and having the vineyard right on that road was, you know, people could see it through the seasons. You saw this big, beautiful vineyard, you know, green in the summertime, and Old Vines Inn looks like little tree stumps, like little old vines. It's not trellis, it's not irrigated. So it's definitely noticeable. And I feel like people driving through California definitely remember our vineyards. But they planted the next vineyard in 1945, right on the other side of Highway 101. So we have 140 acres of Old Vines Inn that are still intact today. And as they got passed down through generations, my dad still farms all of our vineyards. I'm the fourth generation. There's one more behind me that is, you know, just got out of the vineyards at noon today, because we're still really in the peak of harvest 2020 right now. So we're a farming family. We are here. We preserve the land and preserve the vineyards that my great-grandparents planted back in 1925. And it's because we love the farming aspect. We love living amongst the vines. I grew up on this 100 acres. These old vines they're monstrous in size, but they were, you know, my playground as a kid, and I was a farmer's daughter, so we're expected to do the work. And the limbs literally touched my bedroom window my whole life. And so it was kind of in my blood to, you know, I was expected to help and farm and help the vineyards. But as I got a little bit older, I was like, well, let's make some wine from here. I mean, the Dusi Vineyard Zinfandel is so wanted by other wineries throughout California because we have some of the best old vines in, that I was like, I want to make wine. And going to my father, my grandfather, they were like, but we're farmers, we're not winemakers. And so I kind of made it my life goal, mission to start making the wine and turning what we worked so hard all year in the vineyards and taking it to the next step, putting Dusi Zinfandel in a bottle with the Dusi family name on it. So Like I said, I still live on the 100 acres of Zin, which is right behind us. And as you can see behind here, the oak trees back there. So as he said before, El Paso de Robles, it's like the passing of the oaks, because like driving through the 101, it goes all the way up and down California. And when you go through Paso Robles, you see vineyards spotted with oak trees. So they, you know, it's El Paso de Robles. But locally, everyone just calls it Paso or just Paso Robles. But you know, our history is rooted in Zinfandel because that's some of the first varietals planted here. And I have a lot of pride that a lot of those Zinfandel vineyards are planted by my family, and some of the ones that are still intact and still family owned. So there's still all of us generations living on the vineyard, taking care of it, and now turning it into wine. But one more tidbit is that I know we've been growing grapes since the 20s, but only had the winery in the last 15 years. We grew the grapes, we farmed the land, and we sold the grapes to other wineries. So you guys might notice the Dusi name on other bottles, like Turley makes a Dusi Vineyard designated wine. Ridge out of Santa Cruz is making a Dusi Vineyard Zin since 1967. So we've been farming the grapes and selling them to other wineries. And then in 2005, I started J Dusi Wines, and now have my Zinfandel, and it just says from the Dante Dusi Vineyard. So when I say vineyard designated, means that other wineries want to buy our fruit and put our name on their label. Like, hey, not, you know, all of the grapes in this bottle come from the established Dusi Vineyard in Paso Robles.
So are you 100% an estate winery based on that?
Pretty much everything I make is from vineyards we own and farm ourselves. And we are, when I say farm ourselves, like we are it. And our family, between 4 generations in the vineyards from sun up to sundown right now during harvest. But yeah, I do buy a small amount of grapes from one farmer in town. I buy his whole vineyard just for one wine. I make about 300 cases from it, but primarily all estate. Yes.
Now you mentioned 140 acres total that you grow. Yeah.
140 acres of old vines in. So 100 acres. So, yeah. So we have about another 300 acres in town that we planted and we farm and all hand picked. So we are, when I say we're in the peak of harvest, we're in it, but it's going okay.
But do you still sell any fruit to other wineries like the famous ones you just mentioned, Turley and Ridge, or are you using all of your fruit now?
I can never use 140 tons. I hope not, but I take about 20% of my family's vineyards and make wine and put it under the J Dusi Wines label. But today, even, we still sell 80% of our grapes to other wineries. So you go to any store, whatever state you're in, and you go to the Zinfandel section, and I'm sure there might be one that's vineyard designated as Dusi Vineyards, because we do sell still to, you know, Tobin James, Turley, Ridge. Those are the 3 biggest buyers, and then I'm probably the 4th largest.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. If we have a bunch of people watching right now, if those of you watching, if anybody has not had California Zinfandel, hit us up in the chat. I'd love to hear a little bit about the numbers, because it is so special. Anybody who's watched some of our broadcasts knows it's one of the reasons I got into the wine business. Originally, somebody gave me a bottle of amazing California Zinfandel, and I was absolutely floored. It was almost a life-changing experience. That wine was so exquisite. So let us know if you've not ever had it. And we have a question from Myra. She asks, have the fires impacted your production and harvest?
So we are about 2.5 hours away from the nearest fire right now. They're all kind of subdued and contained right now, but Napa, our hearts go out to Napa and what's going up in Sonoma, because it's heartbreaking. But we've fared very, very well. Like I said, it was 2 hours away from the nearest fire. We have been inundated with smoke a couple days and a little hazy quite a few days. A lot of more the corporate wineries are putting out addendums to the contracts of fruit and saying it has to get checked for smoke taint. We have gotten a lot of our vineyards checked, and they've come back with flying colors and no smoke taint. But it is a little bit of a concern. Not much. I'm not even worried about my grapes. We're so small and it hasn't been lingering too much, but we are we are quite a ways away. We're about 4 hours south of Napa and the big fires that are devastating Northern California right now.
All right, a couple of other questions. We have a very engaged group tonight, Janelle.
Okay.
So
Should we talk about Zinfandel?
Nancy is somebody who's watched a bunch of our broadcasts and is an awesome fan and member of our audience. Her question is, what is the flavor? She's never had Zinfandel from California. What is the flavor? How does it compare to other wines?
Zinfandel's okay.
Good. So I'll just say, for me, it's awesome. If you like California Cabernet Sauvignon, you will love Zinfandel. It's even bigger and bolder and fuller bodied, but I'll let Janelle give you the finer points on what is the kind of characteristic of true California Zinfandel.
The biggest thing about Zinfandel is the fruit. There is exploding fruit in Zinfandel sometimes. One thing about old vine Zin, because it's dry farm, so there's no irrigation, and it's head pruned, is that it reflects Mother Nature, what happened that year. So how much rain we have has a big influence on the fruit composure of the Zin, but Zinfandel is all about the fruit, and it can be bright, fresh fruit up front, or it can be all the way the spectrum of pruny, kind of jammy, overripe Zin. I kind of hold those aspects aside for Zinfandel, port style Zinfandel. So I try to get more of the raisiny type and, that kind of stuff for dessert wine. And I really try to concentrate by picking the Zinfandel really lean on the leaner side. So lower sugar, which in turns lower alcohol, but you're getting all just the bright fruit. And Zinfandel is one of the varietals that just kind of screams fruit, and that's just one of the glorious things about it. That and Grenache, where Grenache is a little bit softer fruit, Zin's a little bit more meatier, and another thing that can happen between the Rainfall is I can get a little spice on the back end palate, which is
it's amazing. It's got that big full body, and it can stand up to a really hearty, delicious meal, whether it's steak or like an incredible pizza. But it's got that, as Janelle's saying, has this fruitiness. I like some of a little bit of jamminess in the wine too.
Yeah.
But and Gretchen just asked, can you talk about the taste of Zinfandel compared to other popular wines? It's like a Cabernet Sauvignon, but with 1.5 times the level of like body and fruit in the flavor. And if you have it with a great pasta with red sauce, especially like a spaghetti with meatballs or anything like that, and marinara, it is magical when you pair it.
I love it with like a spicy marinara or something. Anything that goes with those kind of dishes. A lot of people enjoy Zinfandel with barbecue because that fruit kind of really melds well with the barbecue foods that are great with. I know people were asking about that. And Zinfandel, what's cool about Old Vine Zin too is that there's a couple other varietals interplanted in here in this vineyard when they planted back in the 20s and 40s. So there's a little bit of Petite Syrah out there, a little bit of Carignan, a little bit of Alicante Bouschet, which kind of makes the Italian field blend. So all the Zinfandel vineyards are planted back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, all have a little sprinkles of these other varietals, because someone mentions Petite Syrah in here. And Petite Syrah is a nice, and Alicante add a little bit of color to the Zinfandel too. So,
well, Janelle, I hope you got a good full container there of iced coffee, because the questions are coming fast and furious, which is awesome. Love the Zins, but will you be bringing back the Petite Syrah?
Yes, that's what I was trying to say. There's a little Petite Syrah sprinkled out here. I processed some in the winery today. We'll see. It's every year. It's kind of like I make the blends we do every year, like the Zinfandel, the Scandalosa, like I see in another question in the shirt I have on. This is a Zin-based blend wine that I do called a Scandalosa. And it's Zinfandel blended with Mourvedre and Petite Syrah. So there might be Petite Syrah one day, but I really try to blend wines and bottle wines that really kind of stand out. So certain years, the Petite Syrah is 100% by itself because it's just like a wow factor, but not every year.
All right, I threw out a couple of things that pair well with these amazing California Zins. What are some other dishes or foods that pair well with California Zin?
You know, depending on the Zin, some can be big and boisterous and kind of full of berry. Mine are a little bit more restrained in style, so more medium bodied. So I think you could even go as light as like a pork tenderloin with my Zin. But like I said earlier, I think it stands up to barbecue really well. I'm from Northern Italy and I love like a nice, you know, red sauce that's just fresh. And I think you can't go wrong with anything Italian dish like that as well.
That's awesome. Where did the name Paper Street come from? You make a Zinfandel called Paper Street.
Yes, so I brought the Paper Street in. This is a newer vineyard that we planted in 2012. And what's really cool about this vineyard is it's 350 acres, but only 106 planted. Is just the rugged, intense steepness and hillsides. It's the most dangerous thing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm just thankful that we're all alive every day after we finish picking grapes because it's so intense and gnarly. But what that means is that it makes amazing fruit, amazing grapes come off this property. And it's been fun because it's only a couple years we've been getting fruit from here. But Paper Street name came about because my brother's favorite movie is Fight Club. And it's the street that they live on. And my mother was appalled that we wanted to name a beautiful vineyard after a fighting movie where everyone's bloody and, you know, Brad Pitt and Edward Norton are in, and it was a crazy movie. So she said, absolutely not. And then she went to the county to do the paperwork. And at the county, they said, oh, well, that property is so far up a dirt road that nobody travels on. There's no address for that. We don't even know how to name that property. So she said at the county, we call that a Paper Street property. And my mom said, oh my God, that's like a sign. Like, you want to name it this name, and that's what they call it at the county level. So we named it Paper Street Vineyard. And the road to get up there it's one lane, it's dirt. It's kind of like a glorified ditch. It's just crazy and appalling that we even bought it and planted a vineyard up there. But it does make the most intense fruit I've ever worked with in my life. And so you should try the wines. They're really, really spectacular.
So we want to get to the tasting wines because we have 5 to taste.
Okay.
So I'm going to do what I call the lightning round, and we're going to do a bunch of questions and just quick, give us your 2-sentence answer, or your 1-sentence answer. So quick question from Dana, actually from David. How does rainfall affect the spice and pepper notes on the finish in your red wine?
So on years that were like a drought, like we need about 13 inches a year to have a crop. So we get 11 inches sometimes in a year, and up to about 25. So the more rain we get, the more kind of watered it gets, and maybe you get spice flavors, but the more intense and the more of a drought we have, the more intense of the fruit flavors we're getting out. So you know, the less rain, the more the vines stress out, and the more they put all their energy into the limbs and into the grapes themselves. So you get more concentration, more spice, more fruit when we have less rain.
Got it. Okay. Can you please describe the soil and how it relates to the Zinfandel?
Yeah, so our soil, we have a lot of limestone and calcareous soil here in Paso Robles, depending on where you are. But one of the main things about Old Vine Zinfandel is that people talk about the roots. The roots might go down 50 feet, 30 feet, 50 feet, 80 feet. And you think about all the layers that every little tap roots are getting to. So it's pulling minerality and all those different layers of soil types. And a lot of our soil here is rocks, and it's just stressed out. And that my dad always said, he was a wheat farmer also, said, the better it grows vegetables and wheat and barley, the worse it is for growing grapes. You know, you want really poor soil because it makes the grapes work harder and harder and stress out more. And that's better fruit is what you're getting.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have this, as a non-winemaker, I have this theory that the harder the grapes have to fight to survive, the better they are.
That's 100% true. And that has to do with the soil for sure.
All right, 2 more questions in the lightning round. How long should I lay down my Zinfandel and age it in a bottle at home? So lay it down, you know, horizontal and age it.
So because Zinfandel is so full of fruit, it's one of those big fruit bombs, it doesn't age as well as a Cabernet or a Petite Syrah or Syrah. So it's not meant to age a long time. I prefer my Zins 1 to 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
After 6, they're definitely interesting for a couple years, but after 10,
Yep.
it's not the best, but it's not built to. And that's because the skin of the grapes are so thin. And that has a lot to do with the ageability on it.
Got it. All right. I love this last question. It's so awesome. Joe says, I heard you saved money as a teenager to buy your first barrel. What was the first wine you made?
I can't believe, what was the first wine? It was Zinfandel. Yes, I did save money. It was a 15-gallon barrel. I even took my senior pictures in high school on the wine barrel, and I was looking back at it being like, what was I thinking? You know, my senior pictures on a wine barrel, but it was the first barrel I bought, and I bought with my own money. But of course, I made 100% Dusi Zinfandel in that first year.
That is awesome. All right, we're going to do a quick tour, and then we're going to start tasting wine. So just tell us, I'm going to put an image up, tell us what it is. So it looks like this is the tasting room patio, yeah?
Yes, that's our patio. And right now, because of COVID, we're 100% outside. And that's where it looks a little bit different now. We've upgraded quite a bit. But yep, that's our blue umbrellas, our signature color at J Dusi in our front patio of the winery.
Awesome. And then this looks like inside the tasting room in normal times, yeah?
Yep, that's inside the tasting room. Come up to the bar, try all the wine flight, and there's a big giant window where you can see right into the wine cellar.
Love it. All right, awesome. All right, we are going to move on over now to tasting wine. Thank you, everybody, for the questions. That was awesome. The first wine we're going to taste, I'm going to put it up on my screen here. Correct me if I'm wrong, Janell, is the Pinot Grigio.
Yes.
This is the 2018 Pinot Grigio from J Dusi Wines. It's $20, so it's a real great value.
Yeah.
Tell us about this wine. What are the tasting notes, and what's a food that is optimal to pair with it?
So tasting notes on the Pinot Grigio. I know it derives from Italy, but one of the great things about this, because it's grown in Paso Robles, so it's got all that Paso Robles sunshine, giving it all those ripening tones. So not just like an Italian Pinot Grigio that can be real acidic or almost watery. This has got full flavor because it's grown here in Paso Robles. There's not much grown or planted here in Paso, so it's kind of unique to do this. This is one of my largest production wines and the only white I had been doing. And it's from a vineyard we own and farm ourselves. And I just love that it's stainless steel fermented. So it's clean and crisp and really refreshing, but it's got more ripeness, a little bit more depth than a lot of Pinot Grigios on the market.
Does it make you thirsty or hungry when you drink it?
It makes you want more. Plus it's screw cap. So it's nice and easy to just crack open another bottle. And I love to pair it with, like a seafood dish or like a spicy shrimp. It goes great with Asian food with a little bit of heat to it because it's so crisp and refreshing that it just pairs really, really well.
How about sushi?
Oh yeah, it's at all of our local sushi restaurants for sure.
Is it really?
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So let's move on to wine number 2 is the 2019 Rosé. I have it up on my screen. It's to my right here. Beautiful pink color. I love it. And you can see it there just live with Janell holding it. Awesome seeing it through the lens of the vineyard there. So tell us about this wine. This one is also $20. Also
Yeah.
great value. Is it a blend or is this a single varietal rosé?
It is. It's a blend. It's 2 Southern Rhone varietals actually grown right on the winery property. It is Grenache and Carignan. And I grow these 2 varietals specifically for rosé. So they are harvested and whole cluster pressed. So it goes straight into a press, juice comes off. So the skin contact is where you derive all this pink, light pink color from. So it's definitely one of the hardest things to key in is that exact beautiful color. And I think this nice salmony pink color is spot on in 2019. And the blend of Carignan and Grenache, about 50-50 both varietals. But a beautiful wine. I think it's definitely crisp like the Pinot Grigio, but even more depth because of that skin contact. So a little bit more layers kind of going on in that rosé.
And then for those of you who are wine aficionados and know these kinds of things, the rosé is always made from red wine grapes, and the color comes from the skins, and they leave the skins on for what, 10 hours, 18 hours, a day or 2, and that's it.
So to get this light color, I leave them on for just about 4 or 5 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
because you'll see different varying on the rosé aisle at the store, you know, hot pink ones, barely pink one, you know, all different kinds. And it's all about, well, the varietals you use because of how much pigment is in the skin originally and how long you leave it on the skins.
Awesome. And then what is this one you recommend pairing with, or is this just a great bottle to take to the beach or a picnic and just drink by itself, or what?
Oh, this is like, yeah, hang out, open a bottle, enjoy a glass of rosé while you're still going into the fall. I mean, rosé is a great Thanksgiving wine too. I think it pairs with turkey and appetizers really well during right before you get into wintertime. I do see someone asked if it was on the drier side, and yes, it's not sweet, but it's not bone dry, so it's just enough on there that you don't taste the sweetness, but it just helps the mouth feel.
That's awesome. All right, so let's move on to the Zinfandel. The first one is the Dante Dusi Zinfandel. This one is a little higher in price point, is $42. For anybody interested in getting these wines, don't forget to use the promo code, and you get the wines directly from the winery website. I'm going to put this one up on my screen for everybody to see. Bear with me 1 second. Beautiful bottle. I love the label. And tell us about this. Where does this one fit in sort of the world of Zinfandel? Is it on the bigger side? Is it on the heavier side? Fruity,
Well,
jammy?
this is the classic Zin that we've been talking about all evening, I should say. This is from the 100 acres of vineyard I'm sitting in now that was planted in 1945. This is that bottle. So this is, wow. I get about 24 tons a year off this vineyard. And this is my pride and joy. This is what I started with. My very first wine I made, my biggest production red wine. This is my Zin. This, I feel like, encapsulates everything about J Dusi and the Dusi family. Yeah, like I said earlier, it is a little bit more on the medium bodied side. So what's nice about that is that it really showcases all that big bright fruit and the spice on the finish, but not overly bombastic, not overly high alcohol, which is very easy to do trying in Zinfandel. But I feel like this is very classic and compare with a lot of different things. But this is the one, the grapes that we sell to Turley and Tobin James, you'll see other people making wine from as well.
And what is the alcohol content of this?
Oh, about 14 and a half. Oh, 15.
All right, so it's got some kick. Somebody was telling us a couple weeks ago, we had this very interesting importer on who's from a wine, you know, a family that's been in the wine world for a long time. And he made a very interesting point about if you're drinking a rosé or something with lighter alcohol content, 3 glasses of that is not even quite as much alcohol as, I forget what the number was, but it was like a lot less of a bigger wine with a higher alcohol content. It's a multiplier. It's almost like exponential.
Yeah, I haven't heard that necessarily, but if you think about, you know, a beer at 5% and this is at 15%,
right,
and you're just sipping it because it's so delicious and it's got all that fruit and it, you know, it's going great with the wine, the company. Yeah, you gotta watch out sometimes. In California wines, you know, we have a lot more sunshine than France does. We have more ripening, so we get those higher alcohols in a lot of other countries.
Do you guys exhibit and participate in the Zinfandel experience in San Francisco in the winter?
Yes, every year since 2006, I believe. Yeah, it's a great time. It's a great experience. Yeah.
Well, I don't think I've ever told this story before on our broadcast here, but it's a short one, but it's funny, and that is that the Zinfandel advocates and producers, the coalition of Zinfandel growers and makers in California, the first year that they worked with my company to do the New York version of the event, they said, come on out to the San Francisco event. We've been doing the event for 25 years. We want to see what we do and how, you know, for you to experience what we do. And I had never been. And if you've not been to the Zinfandel experience in San Francisco, and you ever feel like going, it usually happens every January when things are back on with physical events, I recommend highly you go. It's an incredible experience. There's 120 wineries they're tasting tables lining this huge space in a beautiful overlooking the San Francisco Bay. And the Zinfandels are gorgeous, but they're also a little higher on the alcohol side, as Janell pointed out. And so the people from the Zinfandel advocates and producers said, listen, walk around, check it out, and then we want to introduce you to some of our board members, and you'll talk about what you're going to do in New York with the event. I said, no problem. So I walked around for 2 hours tasting Zinfandel, and it was so delicious that I wasn't spitting it out. I was just tasting it, like taking little sips. And then it was time to meet the board members. And I said, you know what, guys, I need a few minutes to like pull myself together because, you know, after 2 hours of tasting Zinfandel, you feel pretty good. You're feeling
it's a great spot, like you said, to try 120 different wineries, Zinfandel, and really learn about Zin and see how they differ and see how the regions of California they're growing Zin differ, which is an awesome place to do it at ZAP in January in San Francisco.
It's an incredible experience. By the way, Sarah says, come to Paso Robles Zinfandel weekend instead. Sarah, I'm in. I'm coming. All right, so I put the Paper Street up on my screen. This is the next one. This is the 2017 Paper Street Zinfandel. A little bit higher price point, but this is a very, very special wine. $68 a bottle. Again, with the discount code, you get some discount on this. Yes. I'm sure this is absolutely beautiful. Tell us about this, Zin.
So this is where people are going to get that, you know, bigger, bombastic, like I said, huge body of a Zinfandel. It is, like on the back, we say hand harvested from the rugged terrain of Paper Street Vineyard. When this fruit, when it was planted in 2012, is actually cuttings from this Dusi Vineyard out here. So from the 1945 plantings, we planted it up about 1,000 feet higher elevation and the same cuttings. So we have one planted in 1945 and 2013. Wow. And I can't say one's better than the other. They're both just very different, but they have that same underlying Zinfandel characteristics. But this is kind of soft and have some finesse and a little more medium bodied, where this is in your face, jammy, big, bold, and just everything you feel like a Zinfandel has been about. But I really try to make this a little bit softer on the Dusi's inside. And I would never want to say which one I like better because I just like them both for different aspects and different food combinations and things like that. But Paper Street's definitely special. And when that fruit comes to the crush pad during harvest, it just looks and feels different. It's, you know, it's dark as ink and it just starts off fermentation just different and big and bold and over the top.
So now these two wines, and you just described the distinction. What's the food that you would optimally, what your favorite food to pair with each one?
I tend more to like the spaghetti meatballs, but my mom's homemade spaghetti meatballs. And, you know, maybe something a little spicier over here, where this would go with a nice steak with a, you know, like steak au poivre or something that has like that peppery, like sauce on it and that red meat. This is what could hold up to there because it's got fruit in it too, but it's got the hardiness and the boldness of it. So that's kind of where I would lie on both of them and what really sings to me for them.
Yeah, and I have to say, you know, I've been around the wine world for a number of years, you know, going on 15, and I have come even just in the last year to have a even greater respect for the extraordinary experience of when you pair a wine with a food and you really do a great pairing. It is magical.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that these Zinfandels are a great example of that. And that first Zinfandel that I ever tasted, I'd never had a California Zin. It just so happened that my wife, who's a very good cook, had made spaghetti with meatballs, homemade. Oh,
there you go. Yeah.
I opened up this bottle. It was actually a bottle of Turley. It might have been your grapes, Janell.
Yeah, maybe.
And it didn't look like much. The Turley label wasn't much, and it was in the wasn't in that beautiful shaped bottle that's up on the screen now. It was more on the sort of squat kind of circular round bottle.
Yeah, Truly uses a Burgundy style bottle.
And I poured it. I was like, oh well, somebody gave this to me. Some guy to do business with. He gave it to me as a gift, and I said, well, why don't we try it? And I tasted it, and I like let out a shout. I was like, oh my god, this is incredible. And then having it with spaghetti and meatballs was great. Was totally cool. All right, so we're rounding third and heading home here. Let's take a look at the final wine, which is a dessert wine.
Yes.
It's a port. Excuse me.
It's a port style. So since it's not made in Portugal, you can't call it a port these days. But I do think on certain years, you know, since our vines are dry farmed and like we're 103 degrees today, we just finished picking these, but they have a long summer, these vines to live through and grow and mature in when it's over 100 degrees. So sometimes during harvest, we might get a heat spell of 108 for a couple days, and those grapes kind of turn into raisins almost. So
really?
Only on years where we have a problem getting the sugars low enough for the Zinfandel, I take about 3 or 5 tons, so just a small portion of the vineyard, harvest it at a much higher sugar level, and then halfway through fermentation, I fortify it with brandy, so a high proof spirit, and that stops the sugar fermenting into alcohol. So you're left with about 10 parts of sugar, and then you have all this high proof that just brings this heat. And so after aging in barrel for 2 years, we bottle it in a nice skinny bottle. And that way it looks like a dessert wine, and it's showing you that, hey, this is fortified like a port style wine, but it's made with Zinfandel grapes. What's cool about it is either you can open it up for a dinner party and have a nice little sweet treat. It goes great with dark chocolate or even a nice cheese plate after dinner. But you could open the cork, and since it has so much high proof in it, you can put the cork back in and it'll last for a month, maybe 2 months. So you can also use it as kind of like a nightcap and just pour a little bit each night because it is sweet. But it's sweet, and I think that the alcohol and the sweetness kind of blend really, really well together. So it's not overly high alcohol and overly sweet, but it's just that perfect combination.
And you would say generally the occasion is a dessert occasion for this.
After dinner, at least, yeah.
Or after dinner, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to drink this sweet. It's, you know, it's thicker, not syrupy, but it's thicker because it has that sugar in it, and it's a nice little after dinner to pair with dessert. Like I said, pair with a cheese plate after dinner. It's perfect.
Yeah, that's great. And this is if everybody can see my screen, is this a 375? Is this a half bottle?
It is, yes.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Janell, this has been so much fun. I mean, our first, you know, I worry about if we ever do another Paso Robles winery, they're not going to be able to follow this. This is not an act that's easy to follow. We just reviewed and went through 5 really extraordinary wines, and to hear the history of the winery and the vineyards is so cool. I know everybody really enjoys that. So thank you. Real quick, I'm going to put up, oh, look at the vineyard. That's great. You really do live in the vineyard.
Yep, there's my truck right there, and it's parked right. My chickens are right over there, and yeah, right in the middle of 100 acres of old vines in.
That is awesome. So I'm going to put up on screen for just so everybody has it again. This is the website, and if you are interested in any of these wines, Janell has generously offered a promo code ZAP, Z-A-P like Peter 10. That's 10% off. I highly recommend them. And thank you everybody for watching. Janell, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We'd love to have you back. You know, maybe next time we'll do something where we'll get an awesome wood-fired pizza place, and we'll do like a combination of you talking about Zin and like wood-fired pizza.
I have 2 wood-fired ovens myself. One at the winery, one at my house. I'm game.
Well, then we don't need them. We just need you. All right. Well, thank you again, and stay safe and well. And we're looking forward to the 2020 harvest and vintage.
Me too. Thank you guys so much. Fun to hang out with you guys from New York.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. Take care now.